Hey YouTube, this is Wrestling You Smart Fan 62. Um, AEW, what I would like to see change. Okay, AEW is in a quietly different spot than it was. AEW, when it first debuted, was an alternative to WWE because when AEW debuted, WWE was getting cold, but it wasn't quite the loony it was. But over time, Tony Khan started making it go downhill. So he came out with stuff like the Continental Classic and stuff like that. And the main issue with AEW is it's in a weird spot because most people are looking at it and either laughing, not attending, or if you are attending, it's very limited. I give them credit for renting out smaller arenas. Um, but the biggest problem is they're still at times renting out arenas that they can't really fill. So the main problem is certain people in AEW does not draw. These are people such as the Young Bucks, the women's division, the Death Riders, and stuff like that. And I understand for some of those, you have to have them on the show. The biggest problem is you need to figure out how to use them in a good way. Because without using them in a good way, they're just going to be bad. They're just going to be floating around. They're not going to do anything. Like, Orange Cassidy basically has a I don't care character. So, he comes out wearing these skinny jeans, has his hands in his pockets. He's looking down. The ring announcer's like, coming from somewhere, anywhere, and all this jazz. The main issue is some of these characters were fine when AEW debuted in 2019. The main problem is they have stuck with that same character for so long, it's just getting stale, boring. Any of those words. So that is the main thing. They need to breach out with some of these characters. And then certain characters they have in the show are sort of knockoffs of other characters. So you have MJF, which is like the rich person who doesn't care. Who does that remind you of? Ric Flair and all these other people. So the main issue with AEW is it needs to work on its identity. Are you an alternative? Are you staying with it? Because when a show gets beaten by NXT 10 out of 12 weeks since June, you have a problem. And the fact, since April, their viewership has gone from 800 something thousand all the way down to 500 something thousand on average. Now, I am putting that 1 week where NXT and AEW went head to head on AEW's night and AEW got annihilated. I'm putting that one aside. The main problem is they need to work on something that is going to draw both hardcore fans in as well as general people. Because that's the reason why when you hear professional wrestling, what do you think about? WWE. The last thing a lot of people think about is AEW. Most of the people who think of AEW are typically the hardcore indie style people. So these are the people that go to stuff like GCW shows, PWG, all these other small indie minded wrestling companies. So that is one of the main issues. Now, with the women's division, its main problem is this: its titles are being held by heels. The problem with that is Mariah, for example, is at a point where who is left there to beat? Unless someone like Julia Hart or someone like that goes after Mariah. But Julia Hart is starting a feud with Jamie Hayter, which I'll get to her in a minute. Then you have Mercedes Moné, who has both the TNT and the New Japan Strong Style. The problem with her is she is not going to get beat by any woman on that roster. And Tony, the thing with him is he doesn't want to tell her, hey, Willow, for example, is going to beat you. Because he's afraid he's going to lose his friend. Okay. Jamie Hayter. So she is essentially AEW's version of Becky Lynch without being called the man. Or big time Bex, or whatever Becky wants to call herself. The biggest problem with Jamie Hayter is this. First of all, after being out for 7 months or 12 months or however long she was out for, she came back on the pre-show for All In. The pre-show. Just for that to be like, what happened? Like 5 minutes after. So that is one of the main problems, is the fact she came back at a time where people were looking forward to whatever the first match was going to be. Second, I don't know what her character is, but she looks like a 70s version of like a hippie. So one week she was dressed as a 70s version of Daphne from Scooby-Doo. And the thing is that is that her character? That is the main problem. Whatever her character is not clicking. Like Julia Hart, one of the reasons why she clicks with a lot of the fans is because she is a part of the House of Black. The House of Black clicks with a lot of the people in AEW because probably a lot of people listen to AEW's theme music, that type. Now, until Tony Khan puts his foot down and be like, okay, we're going to do this, do it this way, this way, this way, and this way, the women's division is just going to be a part of the show that is a bathroom break, going to the concession stand, whatever. If Tony Khan wants to have his women's division be serious like WWE is, he has to fix it in some fashion. Also, he needs to start having more than one feud going on at the same time. If NXT can have the same show for 2 hours and have 4 matches on the card, why can't AEW? Because he wants to have somebody like Jon Moxley and the Death Riders or Death Triangle, whatever the heck they want to call themselves, run amok and pour whatever blue liquid down somebody's throat. That is the reason why this show is going downhill fast by the week. In October, NXT and AEW went head to head. NXT annihilated AEW on NXT's night. So you're thinking, okay, that's just a one-time thing. Not even a month later, they met again because of the presidential election. So they moved NXT to Wednesday night, which was AEW's night. And NXT still beat AEW on AEW's night. Most of the times it would have been vice versa. The main problem is some of the characters Tony has on his show. Listen to any Jim Cornette's podcast of AEW reviews and the ratings. And then you have people like Chris Jericho with this corny learning tree nonsense. And him going, "Hi guys," like he's a stupid cartoon character or a kid show host. Until some of the stuff like the learning tree, the Death Riders, all of that goes away, this show is going to keep going downhill fast. There is a reason why the amount of people going to these shows is getting smaller and smaller and smaller by the week. The fact they can rent these 20,000 seat arenas like the KFC Yum Center, like Rupp Arena, all of that, and only bring in maybe 3,000 to 4,000 fans, if that. And who knows how many of those is comped. Because you may only have, let's say, 2,000 paid, and the rest are comped. Like they just announced All In Texas has like $1.35 million gate. First of all, this event's not till July. Second of all, it only has, I think, like 6,000 to 10,000 tickets distributed for an event that they're hoping to have around 19 or 20. So unless you have an extra 10,000 or so people buy tickets between now and July, they're going to just be back at Wembley Stadium in 2026. The next problem is this. Speaking of Wembley, but Wembley, what about it? Yes, the thing is, there was a dramatic drop between the first year of All In to the second year of All In. So until there is a change with this, the attendance is going to keep dropping. The ratings going to keep going down. And then TBS gave Tony Khan $550 million or whatever that number was. For what? To keep your show on a network that is just losing people by the week? Warner Brothers Discovery is already in a bad position as is. And now you're putting that on top of this, on top of this, on top of this. Tony better hope if Zaslav for Warner Brothers Discovery gets fired, the next person that replaces him likes wrestling. Because if not, AEW is going to be in a really bad predicament and could possibly end up like WCW. But AEW is getting itself deeper into a hole. Now, they did do a smart thing, and Tony did announce Rampage is being canceled. Which is fine, because that show was just dead weight. Nobody watched it. It came on right after SmackDown most of the time, and it had about not even half of SmackDown's audience. It wouldn't surprise me if Collision's on its way next. Now, there's going to be some of you be like, oh, you're just a WWE fanboy. No, I'm making logic here. Until some of these characters change. Until the Bucks don't be annoying pricks. Or whatever. This show is just going to keep going downhill fast.